Today we want to look at, does the Bible endorse slave trade? Slave trade. How many of you know there were slaves in the Bible? How many of you also know that they used the Bible to actually endorse transatlantic slave trade? That when you come for midweek service, you wear your top boss, and when you come for Sunday service or weekend service, you wear your bottom boss, or what they call Sunday best. Have you heard that statement? How many of you know that slave masters were using it to boast that their slave dressed more than the others? Some of you have clothes you will never wear except on Sunday. Or during cure. You are even preparing. And I have none. I have none. Except you have ceremonial dresses. But let's look at some questions we need to consider today. What picture does slavery bring to your mind? What picture does slavery bring to your mind? Number 2, do some verses in scriptures condone slavery? And number 3, did the Bible encourage transatlantic slave trade? Did he encourage it? So, before we go further, I want you to understand now that there still exists some form of biblical slavery today. And it's described. A good example is the military service. Another type of work with some few exceptions. For example, there are many people who they enter maybe Lillian here will understand. Some people, you enter a bank, you enter, they employ you, and they do what is called a bond, especially when they buy you a car or they have taken you for training, and you covenant to serve that place for 5 years before you break it. That's the type of biblical slavery. And we're going to look at it from scriptures. And many of you are even in that form of slavery today. So, now this is how the biblical slavery is operated. Is that form of slavery? You know, when you enter the military, I'm not talking about some perverted form. If you enter the military, especially one time I was flying with a Nigerian who just signed up to join the American army. And he was trying to tell me the benefits in the army. My cousin is in the army. They have so many benefits. They send them to school. In fact, even in Nigerian army, do you know what it takes to raise an officer? They send him to school, some of them up to PhD level. And they put them in the barracks. They buy uniform for them. And you cannot just stand up and leave. There's a term, there's a number of years you will serve. If you leave, you are absent without official leave. That's what they call AWOL. So that is the form of slavery the Bible actually talked about. Some of you are working in a place now. In fact, there's a type of slavery that we do not talk about, the Igbo apprentices system. And we're going to look at it from scriptures. You know, most times in the Igbo apprentice system, the maximum time of training is 6 years. Huh? Where did they get it? And on the 7th year, they do freedom for them, and the Oga does not let them go. It gives them that. We're going to look at it. So, why biblical slavery? The question is that why was this type of slavery? Biblical slavery is to help a person who is in a bad place, maybe in debt, use the opportunities found in biblical slavery to improve their situation. This is not the type of slavery we are used to. So most times when people get, especially into America, especially people that do not have papers, if they can get into the American army, they give them citizenship immediately. their children, even their parents have access. Same thing that happened in the Bible times. So we need to be open and study to understand biblical slavery. So whatsoever you have taught about slavery before, all those Kutankite and all those people that they whip, please put it aside, because we are going to look at it scripturally. So there are misconceptions about biblical slavery. There are types of biblical slavery, and there are difference between biblical slavery and the type of slavery we are used to. Yeah, there's a difference. Now you must understand that the Bible does not teach you can force anybody into slavery. It doesn't teach that. There's a commandment that prohibits making a free person a slave or trading the person. The punishment is death. If you do not understand that, understand it now clearly. That there are some, you cannot just take somebody in Bible times and make the person a slave, a free person. It's not. It has to come out from the person's free will. That if you are going to do that and they catch you, is death. That's why you find out that even in Nigeria and some parts, at least 3 states in Nigeria, I know, maybe others have emulated it, the death penalty for kidnapping is what? The penalty for kidnapping is death. The Bible says in Exodus chapter 21 verse 16, whoever steals a man and sells him, and anyone found in possession of him shall be put to death. Anyone found in possession of him shall be put to death. 1 Timothy chapter 1 verse 10 says, the sexually immoral, men who practice homosexuality, enslavers, this is the New Testament now, liars, perjurers, and whatever else is contrary to sound doctrine. So in true slavery, a slave has no rights, considered a property and treated less than a human. The slave owner can do whatever he likes to a slave without consequences. That's what we see in the transatlantic slave trade. That the people are walking in the king and their mouths are padlocked. So you can do anything. You can beat the person. You can even sleep with your wife. You can do anything. That same thing was what was happening in Egypt. So when they came out, he gave them the Torah. So the Hebrew word for slave is a bed. Somebody say a bed. This is a contractual servant, not less than a human. And a bed has rights and benefits from the arrangement. And a bed has rights and benefits from the arrangement. So an abed is similar to a context, in our context, the living gate man, the megads, nannies. These people have rights. There are megads that stay in your house. They are living nannies. They are caddies and co. And all those other people. They have rights. Some of them do not even stay now. They even come and go. And you cannot just treat them anyhow. So everybody, biblical slaves and even animals, had one full day off from work per week. So it's not only the people that are the slave owners, because that word slave is even strong. That's why I don't want to call it slave according to the Bible. It's a contractual servant. So everybody, so you are not the owner that is sleeping in the house and the slave is working 7 days a week. Why? The Bible says in Exodus 23 verse 12, 6 days you shall do your work, but on the 7th day you shall rest, that your ox and your donkey may have rest, and the son of your servant woman and the alien may be refreshed. So everybody gets to rest, even in the animals, including your servant. So biblical slaves, which we call contractual servants, had other holidays that offer more rest days too. Like Leviticus chapter 23, we have the Feast of Pentecost, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Feast of Passover. You have the Feast of First Fruit, Feast of Yom Kippur, Feast of Trumpets, Feast of Tabernacles. You must understand that in all these feast days is all about rest, and everybody gets to rest. In Leviticus 25 verse 43, it says, you shall not rule over him ruthlessly, but shall fear your God. That means that you cannot rule over the abed ruthlessly. You can't rule over it. So biblical slaves were to be given adequate provision. Adequate provision. Food, shelter, and clothing. The man that is going to get married to Pastor Blessing, he's in this type of contractual servant that goes to work offshore When you're there, they cook for you. They give you food. They give you provision. They give you everything. That's it. And they have rights. They can tell you that the working condition is not well. Are you listening to me? So, because the way we look at biblical slavery is like, that's the way you can call the person and just beat the person anyhow. No, these are contractual servants. And the Bible does not permit you to ruthlessly deal with them. So if you have somebody that is working for you and you are slapping the person every day, be careful. So showing kindness. So they were to be cared for, and there was a responsibility for their safety and health. Showing kindness to servants that is commanded in the Bible is a reminder that the Hebrews were also once actual slaves in the hands of Egyptians. So they were commanded to treat slaves not as the Egyptians treated them. So when a biblical slave, a Hebrew contractual servant, decides to leave at the end of the contract, the contractual servant is blessed substantially, showing gratitude to the servant. So before I get to that, you see, God wanted to remind them that you were slaves in Egypt, but I'm going to take you to your land, and the way they treated you is not the way you are going to treat people that work for you. And he will constantly remind them, you were slaves. That the person living with you should not be treated that way. But you see, when they are going to leave you, because it's for a period of time, the person has a problem. He wants to care for his family. Maybe he's into debt. He has a period he signs up, I will work for you. At the end of that service, this is what it says in Deuteronomy chapter 15, verse 12 to 5. If your brother, a Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman, is sold to you, he shall serve you 6 years. And in the 7th year, you shall let him go free from you. And when you let him go free from you, you shall not let him go empty-handed. You shall furnish him liberally out of your flock, out of your threshing floor, and out of your winepress. As the Lord your God has blessed you, you shall give to him. You shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you. Therefore, I command you this day. That's the Hebrew. Is that not the Hebrew apprentice system? That's why it's working. Because it's biblically based. That is a slave. I hope you know. But nobody will think about that's a biblical type of. So the person serves you for 6 years. You train the person. At the 7th year, when you are releasing the person, you are not saying, oh, yeah, go. No. That's why you find out in some companies, they have what is called severance package. Severance package. It happens even in politics. Some people it's in the constitution that when a political office holder is going, there's what is called, because you have taken care of him in that period. He does not use this money before. That's why people die. You see some people that work for some oil companies, like all these oil companies. Most times when they leave, it's not the well. Especially those people that lived in their estate then. They had 24 hours light for like 30-something years. So when they are going, they are giving something that will make them not to go back again or to regret. Because this person is like somebody who's a governor. 8 years, he didn't buy fuel, he didn't buy food, he didn't buy water, he didn't buy anything. 8 full years. I hope you know he's a slave. Yes. It's a good thing. So now you are wondering now that the biblical slavery is not the way you think it is. Now you know what you said? It's a good slave, Abi? Aha, thank you. So Hebrew servants were contractually committed to being a servant for 6 years. In the 7th year, the contract was considered fulfilled. So due to the fact that servants were treated so well, that the servant decides to serve for life, because the servant loves the master. There is an arrangement established for servants who love their master to their contract to be perpetuity. But you are the one that told me it's a good slave just now. In Exodus 21, verse 5 to 6, it says, but if the slave plainly says, I love my master, my wife and my children, I will not go out free. Then his master shall bring him to God, and he shall bring him to the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear with an awl, and he shall be his slave forever. That's why you see in those times in ancient years, you see somebody is having a ring. That's why when I see men wear ring, I say, are you a slave? Then they put earring. You bought their ear, then they put a ring around them. That one is somebody's slave. When we say slave, it's not the type of slave you know. It's a contractual servant that have decided to say, I love my master, I love the way he took care of me, I love the way he treated me, and I will be with him for life. So this verse also refers to a servant who accepted a wife the employer provided. The wife and the children are not permitted to live at the same time as the husband. For example, you came into the house as a slave. The girl also came also. Or the master now presented you. Because women don't give their service to come and work. They come to marry. So the master brought the girl to you to marry. The girl must fulfill her own part of 6 years. So if you were 5 years and the girl just came, you can go, but she has to finish her own. Everything, it should be fair. Because some people are like that. They just, you have signed a contractual deal, all of a sudden, because you say your brother, they send you somewhere, you break it. No. You must pay back. Here we don't believe in contract. We just can't break anything. We don't believe in our word is our bond. That's it. So a servant can avoid this scenario by not accepting a wife from the employer during the length of the contract. The servant can marry a wife not from the employer or not get married at all during that time. So the servant has a choice and knows the condition of any decision he makes in this matter. So they are not going to give you a wife to put you in bondage. But Laban did it. Jacob entered into servitude to marry. Say, that's my wages. Now he was going now. So a male servant marrying a female servant does not give the male servant the right to break the contract that the female servant has with the employer. After marrying her, he also redeem her or wait till her contract expires with the employer if he does not want to commit forever to that employer. That's it. And I can give you a scenario. It happens even in the banking industry. Some bank want to recruit another person from another bank. And that person has a bond or he has a debt with that bank that he needs to work for some time. You know what they do? They employ the person and pay off that debt and take it here. It's still operating till tomorrow. Especially when the person has some things they want to get. He has some experiences. So you cannot just steal the person and bring it here. And let me tell you, there are people, it's still operating today. If you leave bank A to bank B, the bank B will write bank A, whether you are owing them. If you are owing them, they will tell you, go and pay them back. Why? It's an arrangement between bankers. If you don't go and pay them back, this bank B will not confirm your employment and they can even terminate your employment. So you are jobless. All this one, you go and borrow money from people, they don't know. You go and collect. That is not part of it. So what if a servant is injured by the employer? Because you cannot go into this arrangement and just slap a slave, you beat the slave, and you do the slave anyhow, as you saw in the films you have been watching. The Bible makes provision. What happens to the employer that injures the slave? In Exodus 21, verse 20 to 27. But if there is harm, then you shall pay life for life. eye for eye, tooth for tooth, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. When a man strikes the eye of his slave, male or female, and destroys it, he shall let the slave go free because of his eye. If he knocks out the tooth of the slave, male or female, he shall let the slave go free because of his tooth. Now, this is different from, this is the biblical slave. It's different from other nations, different from what Egyptians did. Other nations' slaves do not have such rights as a biblical ebed. An ebed is the biblical slave, as such rights. Where there is any evidence that an ebed is being mistreated, that they have the right to terminate their service to their employer. They have the right. So a biblical slave has rights. The employer cannot treat the slave anyhow. So there are consequences on an employer for mistreating an ebed. Also, an ebed accusing an employer of mistreated will be heard by the elders at the gates for judgment. So when an ebed says this is what they are doing, and can I also say this thing is also applicable today, that an employer can go to the labor court. An employee can go to the labor court and say, this is what my employer is doing. You see one form or the other that we are seeing. It may not work accurately like that. Every employee has rights. Every employer has rights. That is that contractual agreement. So Hebrew slave could not be sold by their employers. Other nations can sell their slaves to one another. But for an Hebrew slave, you cannot sell that slave. A slave of other nations did not have such right, but an ebed does. Leviticus 25 verse 42 says, for they are my servants, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. They shall not be sold as slaves. We are commanded to love strangers because we were once slaves. Leviticus 19:34. You shall treat the stranger who sojourns with you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. In other words, what was saying, you cannot say a born Jew or somebody who's an Israelite from that nation, you cannot say. So also, they said, a stranger cannot be sold to. But what do you see in all this slavery film you have watched? You can buy one slave and sell the other slave. Same thing when they go and conquer a city and take females. In other nations, she becomes a sex slave. But for them, he gave them commands in Deuteronomy 21, the way they are supposed to treat a woman. And we have treated it how women, God is not against women. We also treated it in when we're talking about divorce and remarriage and sexual immorality. Please, you can go and check those teachings. So how does a person become a biblical slave? How do you become a biblical slave? Lift up your right hand and say, I'm a bond servant. We'll look at that if we want to. So a Hebrew, a person of biblical faith has the opportunity to sell their labor and become a servant. This might be that the person has become poor and all they have left as an asset is their labor. Is their labor. That's why when somebody doesn't have a job, say, bros, me a show. No. You are not fame. You will sell your labor. That's the only thing you have. Go and wash people's cars every morning to get out of that situation. But you know what we do sometimes, especially our brothers who are abroad and sisters? You condone, you make them to leech on the family. Says my brother is suffering. No, it's not suffering. A man gave somebody's friend money. The friend says that the next thing he saw pictures from club. The person that says is suffering. I'm not saying not to help people. Don't get me wrong. I'm talking about. That's why in your employment letter, nobody really employ you. They employ your services, your labor. So the person can choose to support their family by coming under another family to exchange their labor for food, shelter, clothing, etc. for a contractual period of time. That period will afford them the time to be able to bounce back on their feet. Perhaps you even want to learn a new trade, such as being a blacksmith. That's how they do it. And we'll find out that's the Igbo apprenticeship system too. They come under and they learn, and you come and you get freed. Same thing, you go into tailoring. There are people, they train them for 3 years. Some people don't want to be trained for 3 years. Now when they start matching machine, they have gone to free themselves. And so today we could call that being an apprentice or an intern. At the end of the contractual period, as a Hebrew slave, you can choose to live being generously given livestock and other assets, or you can commit to life as a servant with that family. So, first way, you can become a slave. You can decide to say, I have a problem, I have a challenge. Maybe you have blown your money, you are now in debt. It's for you to go and work. You see, that's why that man that was forgiven, who went to hold another slave, the master said you should come until you be able to pay everything back and don't leave him. So you must understand this. This is one. The second way you can do it is if you are a thief. You can become a slave. You stole something. The Bible says if he is caught, he should repay. If a thief steals something from another person, they have to repay it back with interest. If they cannot afford it, then they have to work to pay off their debt. Exodus 22, verse 1 to 3. If a man steals an ox or a sheep and kills it or sells it, he shall repay 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. If a thief is found breaking in and is struck so that he dies, there shall be no blood guilt for him. But if the sun has risen on him, there shall be blood guilt for him. He shall surely pay. If he has nothing, then he shall be sold for his... If he has nothing to pay back, then he will enter into slavery. If you stole 1 ox, 5. You won't thief it. You won't steal again. You won't steal. Paying back what was stolen is better than sending the thief to jail. This is a fair and beneficial to society. Prison is full now. It's our tax money they used to feed them. They give them light. They give them uniform. So there's clothing there. Who is paying? Do you know how many people in the American prison system? American prison system, all the prison houses are quoted in the stock exchange. It's a business. The American government pay per bed. So those prison houses are privately owned. So if you say you are a prison warden in America, you are a big boy. Somebody will just hit your cock bam. He will kneel down and be rolling on the floor. My brother, stand up. Meanwhile, you have been warning the person, don't enter. You are getting done this thing. He said, I don't die. Even if you say me, I not go. We will sell you. No, because it makes it this thing. So 2 ways you can be a slave. One, you enter the problem, you go and sell your labor, or you are a thief. You stole something, and they say when you steal, you pay back with interest. And if you don't have, you go and become a slave. So a Hebrew can rescue you from the harsh forms of oppressive slavery found in foreign lands and bring you into a biblically mandated form of respectable servanthood. In other words, if a Hebrew sees you in another nation being maltreated as a slave, he can redeem you. He cannot say, take me. No. He will pay them, buy you to come into a place that has respectable slavery. Because in that foreign land, you don't have rights. You are a property. Leviticus 25 verse 39 to 46. If your brother becomes poor beside you and sells himself to you, you shall not make him serve as a slave. He shall be with you as a hired worker and as a sojourner. He shall serve you until the year of Jubilee. Then he shall go out from you, and he and his children with him, and go back to his own clan and return to the possessions of his father. For they are my servants whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. They shall not be sold as slaves. You shall not rule over them ruthlessly, but shall fear your God. As for your male and female servants who you may have, you may buy male and female slaves from among the nations that are around you. You may also buy from among the strangers who sojourn with you and their clans that are with you, who has been born in your land and may be your property. You may bequeath them to your sons after you to inherit as a possession forever. You may make slaves of them, but over your brothers, the people of Israel, you shall not rule one over another ruthlessly. Now, let's make some notes from this Leviticus 25 verse 39 to 46. Number one, God reminds them that he saves them from their bondage in Egypt. He saved them. Number two, if a person becomes poor, they can sell themselves to servitude and be released. Same thing. Many of you know the Igbo apprenticeship system. A man goes to the village. He sees a family in poverty. True or false? That's how they do it. They pick one or two of the boys and say, come with me. They train the person for 6 years. Then they settle the person. The person now, as even working, all those small things, he's sending small things home constantly because your guy is giving him something to go. Every year, they still go to the village together. So they see it. But when he gets this, the goal is that to put him on his feet so that he can also put his family on his feet. That is biblical slavery. Number three, slaves from other nations around them can be bought and sold. They are not to be sought out and to be forced into slavery. In other words, he said you can seek out other slaves from other nations. It's not because you are trying to seek them out. You are trying to redeem them from that forced slavery, that slavery that has no rights and benefit for an ebed, and bring them into servitude to you so that they can be human beings again. Number four, this does not endorse seeking new slaves or encouraging the slave trade. So because you are looking for other slaves, and this is the perversion of it, because people perverted this thing, they started going to foreign lands to make free men slaves. A slave in the Bible was never put into slavery out of his free will. It was always by his free will. Always. Number five, this also does not restrict other people in cultures around them for selling themselves as bond servants. This is a proper and godly treatment of servants. In other words, what it's saying is that other people around their nation can decide to say, we love this form of slavery, we want to sell ourselves to you. And they must still follow that protocol. It's still 6 years. And after 6 years, the year of Jubilee, the 7th year, they must settle the person. Leviticus 19 verse 34, you shall treat the stranger who sojourns with you as a native among you. You shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Colossians 4:1. Masters, give your bondservant what is just and fair, knowing that you also have a master in heaven. But there were unfortunate situations. King David instituted forced slavery. In fact, he used slavery to build the temple. Let's look at 1 Kings chapter 9, verse 15. Put it on the screen. 1 Kings chapter 9, verse 15. I want you to see it so that you will see the scripture. When you say, oh, they put it on the screen. Look at what it says. And this is the reason for the labor force which King Solomon raised to build the house of the Lord, his own house, is it Milo? And the wall of Jerusalem, Azar, Megiddo, and Gezer. Are you listening? So, same thing, Rehoboam and Adoniram. 1 Kings 12:18. These two kings fell from favor in God's sight and were found to follow after evil. Why? They instituted forced slavery. Please go and look at this scripture, 1 Kings 12:18, 1 Kings 11:6, 2 Chronicles 12:14. You will see it. Then King Rehoboam sent Adoram, who was in charge of the revenue, but all Israel stoned him with stones and he died. Therefore, King Rehoboam mounted his chariot in haste to flee to Jerusalem. Why? They told Rehoboam, please, the yoke you are putting on us is too much. Remove it. He said, no. If my father flogged you with cane, I will bring serpent. So he wanted that. So when an abed is mistreated, what if an abed is mistreated? What is an abed? A contractual servant. What if he's mistreated? The abed can run away if the working conditions are not considered fair or safe. This guarantees that the abed is there based on free will and not as a forced form of slavery. In other words, if you are a biblical servant or slave, you can run away. The Bible provides for it. I hope you have not mistreated your servant to the extent they ran away. He can run away. Deuteronomy 23 verse 15. You shall not give up to his master a slave who has escaped from his master to you. He shall dwell with you in your midst. In the place that he shall choose within one of your towns, wherever it suits him, you shall not wrong him. We found one. Apostle Paul was writing to one of his letters called Philemon. What was he writing to Philemon for? He was writing about his servant that ran away from him, Onesiphorus. And he said, Onesiphorus have found him, is now worthy. Maybe he was the one that maltreated his master, and said, please, take him back. And you know also you owe me your own life. Am I making sense? So these are examples of biblical slavery. So anytime you have when they talk about biblical slavery, it's not about the oppressive slavery we have. So when an abed runs away from a corrupt employer, he is free and permitted to live as any free person in the town he chooses. The employer has to be so fair and so kind and so giving that the abed will want to stay and not run away. So the Bible provides for a biblical slave to run away if the working condition is wrong. And when he runs to a city, he commanded that city not to give up the abed. Leviticus. Slaves were to be rescued from the slave trade of other nations that were brutal, and these slaves are to be brought to conditions that were more humane so that they will not run away. So if you look at some, the Israelites will look at some people who are slaves in other nations and go and buy them and tell them and bring them to their form of slavery that is humane. Same thing. People can leave your employment and go to another person because you are a tyrant. May you not be that. I say, may you not be that. Amen. A person working for you wants to improve his own life. That's why. They want to come out of debt. They want to come out of it. It's not like human trafficking or people in sex slaves. In Leviticus 25, verse 47 to 55, it says, if a stranger or a sojourner with you becomes rich, and your brother beside him becomes poor, and sells himself to a stranger or sojourner with you, or to a member of stranger's clan, then after he is sold, he may be redeemed. One of his brothers may redeem him, or his uncle or his cousin may redeem him, or a close relative from his clan may redeem him, or if he grows rich, he may redeem himself. He shall calculate with his buyer from the year when he sold himself to him until the year of Jubilee. And the price of his share shall vary with the number of years. The time he has with his owner shall be rated as the time of a hired worker. If there are still many years left, he shall pay proportionate to a redemption sum of his sale price. If there remain but a few years until the year of Jubilee, he shall calculate and pay for his redemption in proportion to the years of service. He shall treat him as a worker hired year by year. He shall not rule ruthlessly over him in your sight. And if he is not redeemed by this means, then he and his children with him shall be released in the year of Jubilee. For it is to me that the people of Israel are servants. They are my servants whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. So when you see your brother being sold as a slave, treated well, treated badly, that's why you see I tell people about our community well-building procedure. You understand? When somebody is being maltreated, it's your job to say, okay, can you come? This is the present day's practice. But in the Bible times, I want you to know that the Bible was not written in a cultural vacuum. It was written within a context of a culture that is going. There was slavery around the Asian Near East. So when Israel got there, they needed to understand, put on their own type of slavery, which is a contractual servant called an ebed that has rights and privileges and will be well cared for. So that's their own way. And they instituted that. And they said, if your own brother, maybe an Israelite, squandered his money and became a slave, you are supposed to go and buy him back. And that's why the parable of the prodigal son, the man was not supposed to put him to go and be taking care of pigs, an unclean animal. That's the worst form of thing to do to somebody. But he realized himself. And please, it's a parable, eh? Say it's a parable. Say it's a parable. It didn't happen. It was a story he was trying to use to teach a lesson. That's why it's called a parable. Let's look at the distinction between a male servant and a female servant. Exodus 21 verse 7. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, she shall not go out as the male slaves do. If she does not please her master, who has designated her for himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. He shall have no right to sell her to a foreign people, since he has broken faith with her. Some people say yes. Women. Let's consider in depth Exodus 21:8. But let's look at Malachi 2:14. It says, but you shall. But you say, why does he not? Because the Lord has weakness between you and the wife of your youth, to whom you have been faithless, though she is your companion and your wife by covenant. So God respects whether you enter into marriage agreement. Brothers, can I say something to you before we go? Don't go and engage a girl if you are not sure yet. Say amen. Betrothal is the same. Exodus 21 verse 7 to 8 says, when a man sells his daughter as a slave, she shall not go out as the male servants do. We are trying to recap. If she does not please her master, who has designated her for himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. He shall have no right to sell her to a foreign people, since she has broken faith with her. If she does not please her master, who has designated her for himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. He shall have no right to sell her to a foreign people, since he has broken faith with her. Let's unpack this. So if God approves of the female living in 6 years, then marriage is no longer a lifelong covenant. Why? God is therefore honoring the sanctity of marriage. If this principle was not in place, men would be free to marry a woman for 6 years, then trade her for another woman. In other words, a family gets into a problem. The woman can say, okay, I will go and sell myself to marry this man. Not without her. She's not forced. Because a woman does not go to work, she goes to marry. You know why you are looking at me like this? Because it doesn't make sense to you. It doesn't make sense to you. But it makes sense to them then, because it's all about family. To preserve the family. Not because the woman is forced to go and marry the man. It's out of our own free will. For example, you have those times, you have seen it, that those times even in the mafia family or the Italian family, they marry to see deals. Not because the person does not agree. You know, your brain has scattered. Because you are used to, and I'm not saying that the woman is forced to. It's from her own free will. For example, a man sells himself by his own free will to go and work to take his family out of poverty. A woman cannot do that. The only way she can do that is to look at a man in tin and say, okay, I like this man. I can do that. And I can stay with the person. And the person will say, let me examine the person. The person will go into a contract, but cannot release her after 6 years. He must marry her for life. Thank you very much. It has sunk in now. And you know the funniest thing? Let's also put it this way. There are people, even in our culture before, a man will look at another man, say, I like you. Yes, I like you. I like you, and you cannot live here. Take one of my daughter. That kind of likeness. It's not likeness of this thing. I like the way you take one of my daughter. And he's not going to take the daughter that doesn't like the man. He will ask them, do you like this man? Say yes. It's a souvenir. It's not souvenir. It happened in our... And you know the funniest thing? Can I say something to you? That those marriages even lasted than the one that you are choosing by yourself. The one you are choosing by yourself now, that you say, no, it's me. Listen. Our grandmother stayed with those men. And I'm not saying that this thing, but the woman was never forced into such arrangement that does not, it's not out of her free will, but she willingly put herself there. So let's look at Exodus 21 verse 7. It said, now the daughter is being sold as Amah. Amah is a female bondservant based on contractual consideration. The daughter is sold by the father for marriage for 7 years. If the terms of the marriage are not fulfilled, it is to be considered a breach of contract, like I said. And the purchaser must allow the girl to be redeemed. She must not be sold outside that family. She must be treated as a daughter or a freeborn woman, or forfeiture clause will be activated. We need to understand the Hebraic cultural background. It's not like your own. So, sometimes some infiltration has entered into our culture that is not kingdom. It's not, like I said, the Bible was not written outside a cultural context. It was written within a cultural context to redeem what was right and to actually remove what was wrong. So when the commands were written, they looked at the way slaves were treated in the ancient Near East and brought their own form of slavery that actually raised people out of poverty, but actually put them in the pathway, and they had rights and benefits and privileges. So it was different from the rest. So that is that, because as I said that, some people are saying, no, that's a form of slavery for women. No. The woman entered on her own, said, okay, I'm going to go into that marriage, on a marriage agreement, just because of my family, and I'm doing it out of my free will because I love this man. Look at Jacob and Rachel. Aha. Jacob did not break the agreement. It was the father that broke the arrangement. And Rachel loved Jacob. I'm looking, now you are understanding. And even Leah loved Jacob. But that's the perversion of it. You see, it went into a contract for 7 years. You understand? And some people say, no. Why? Within that 7 years, it's not that they will be sleeping with the girl. Look at it so that you understand. Within that 7 years, that family that the girl has already contracted for will be supporting her family. Will be supporting. It's not that she has become a sex slave to that man. No, not yet rectified. There's no consummation yet. But she has used her ways and to lift up the family. Maybe now they're now giving the family livestock to get out of this thing. But there's no consummation yet. There's nothing. But after the end of 7 years, the man might say, no, I've already paid for these 7 years. She has become mine. She has become mine, but I don't like her, so I want to sell her. That one cannot be done because you are the one that broke it. That one cannot be done. That's what the Bible frowns out. That one cannot be done. Can't you see this scripture is very sweet? Do you know that there's this form of thing that happens like this? It still happens now where a family will say, this girl that you gave birth to marry my son. And they will be supporting the family. Okay. It's okay. Let's look at some related verses in the New Testament that supports that slaves will be beaten. And one of them is by Jesus. He said, blessed is the servant whom his master will find so doing when he comes. Today I say to you, he will set him over all his possession. But if the servant says to himself, my master is delayed in coming, and begins to beat the male and female servants, and to eat and drink and get drunk, the master of that servant will come in a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he does not know, and will cut him in pieces and put him with the unfaithful. And the servant who knew his master's way, but did not get ready or act according to his way, will receive a severe beating. But the one who did not know and did what was deserve a beating will receive a light beating. Everyone to whom much was given, of much will be required, and from him to whom they entrusted much will demand the more. Blessed is the servant whom his master will find so doing when he comes. Some people have based these verses believe that Jesus supported ruthlessly beating slaves. This is the context of a parable, and parables are story Jesus used to help us understand spiritual truths. So, like I said before, this is a parable. It didn't happen. Every parable that Jesus told was to help us to understand spiritual truths. For example, in Luke chapter 18, verse 1 to 5, Jesus equates God to an unjust judge. The judge eventually gives justice to the widow when she persists. The point of the parable is to tell us to be persistent in prayer, not that God is unjust. So, Luke chapter 12, verse 47 to 48 is not encouraging beating slaves, and also not how masters are to behave. The parable is telling us that we must be ready for Jesus' return. That's the goal of the parable. I know this one I'm reading now, some of you are not ready to, but it's a parable. Every time you need it, when Jesus is saying a parable, the people listening to the parable is for identification. Who am I in this parable? So when he told them the parable of the Good Samaritan, so I'm not Levite. I'm not the priest. I'm not Levi. I'm not Good Samaritan. But Jesus was trying to tell them, your neighbor is not about distance. It's about mercy and compassion and justice. So, one will be rewarded by believing and following the teachings of our Messiah. Punishment is the reward for those that discarded the word of God, which is the will of God. Now, the Bible teaches that we are supposed to be just and fair to servants. It teaches us that. You are supposed to be just and fair to the servant or the slave, but the slave is a harsh word. That's what I like to say. It's a contractual servant. That's what the Bible said. Ephesians 6, verse 5 to 9. Bond servant, obey your earthly masters with fear and trembling, with a sincere heart, as you will Christ, not by the way of eye service as people pleasers. Some of you who are contractual servants, don't work when your master is there. It's eye service. If they put camera now, they will see how you are fighting, how you are doing everything. When the madam is there, you are taking care of the children. Oh, children, how are you? They say, no. But as bond servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, rendering service with a good will as to the Lord and not to man, knowing that whatever good anyone does, this he will receive back from the Lord, whether he's a bond servant or is free. Colossians 4:1. Masters, give your servant what is just and fair, knowing that you also have a master in heaven. You have a master in heaven. You, as a bond servant, a contractual servant, do things not because of eye service, not because you want to please somebody because they are watching you. Do things as unto the Lord. And can I say something to you? When you are doing it, even the person you are doing it for, who's your employer, may not understand. You are not serving him, you are serving the Lord. Are you listening to me? So that you don't stop doing it when they don't receive you well. And we have all kinds these days. You see, I'm asking myself, I was asking my friend just now, Pastor Matthew and Milo, I said, do we have disciples, Pastor Bosha? Have we raised disciples? Some of you say yes. Okay, what is a disciple? Or who is a disciple? A disciple has no will of his own. No will of his own. You don't pick and choose. Say, I'm a disciple of Portia. And what happens is that is what Portia wills, I do. Not that what she wills on Monday, I do. What she wills on Tuesday, no. This one is not correct. No. It not work. A disciple is sacrificial to his august command. Jesus said, make disciples. How do you make them? Teaching them all I have commanded you. All that I have commanded you. All that I have commanded you. Masters, you are supposed to pay them on the 30th of the month. Don't take it to the 5th of the next month. Don't. Bond servants, you are supposed to resume by 7:30. Don't come by 8:30 and write 7:25. Nobody may see you, but God is seeing you. And you are not obeying him. Huh? Listen, you are not obeying him. You are telling cancer to go. Cancer will slap you. I'm telling you because people don't understand what spiritual authority. Spiritual authority is given to you as you obey your master. What did the centurion say? He said, I'm a man under authority. I'm a man in authority, I'm a man under authority. I say to this one, go, and he goes. Listen, obeying Jesus will make you have spiritual authority. Not that you say, I want to have spiritual authority. You are slapping your wife. You are disrespecting your husband. You are cheating your staff. You are doing it, but you want to go for 7 days dry so that power will come about and laugh. Listen, no, you will go and see something that is not nice. Say that guy have power. No. Then you will find out that the demon will say, Paul, Jesus, I know. Paul, I know. Who are you? The sons of Sceva were doing it before. They say, in the name of Jesus that Paul preaches. Name of Jesus that Paul preaches. They don't have a relationship. They don't know the master. They don't obey him. That's why I tell you, to walk in the supernatural is normal. It's a natural thing. It takes authority. And you cannot be in authority when you are not under authority. And how are you under authority? Obeying him. Obeying him. Obeying him. Your prayer will have a voice in that realm. Your voice, you see, at the sound of your voice, they shall come out from their hiding place. Today, no power anymore. We want to use legate to bend the hand of God. It's not going to work. Let's consider some difficult verses in the Bible. Let me quickly. Exodus 21, verse 20 to 21. When a man strikes a slave, male or female, with a rod, and the slave dies under his hand, he shall be avenged. But if the slave survives a day or two, it's not to be avenged, for the slave is his money. Have you read it before? Now, the murder of the servant is strongly prohibited and was punishable by death. That's verse 20. It shall be avenged. Now, let's understand the second verse, verse 21. Because they said something. If the slave survives a day or two, he is not to be avenged, for the slave is his money. That's the real translation. Now let's look at it. The master is giving a benefit of that he was not intending to murder the servant, but was simply disciplining the servant for doing something that they were not supposed to do. This does not mean that it's considered moral to be ruthless or good that the servant dies after a few days. Life for a life only applied when there was conscious intent to murder. Now, the phrase, the slave is his money, suggests that the slave is his property. In English it says the slave is his money, but in the Hebrew, it really says the fee is his money. In other words, this is what happens. When the man, let's go ahead. The employer will suffer financial loss because of the accidental fatality. The death was accidental and the employer paid for medical treatment, as the context shows. Thus, the punishment already given to the boss is the money he paid trying to save the servant. There were no prisons at that time. Everyone is to understand the biblical commandments and be accountable to them. In other words, this is what happens. The man wanted to discipline the slave and intentionally went overboard. And the person got very sick. So, if he dies, immediately he's punished. He's punished. And it's death. It's eye for eye. But if he does not die, and he was taking the person from hospital and he will spend money to do that, then his punishment is already given. Because it's assumed that it was not intentionally done. It was just trying to do that. I don't know if you understand. So, it's not saying the servant is his property. It's saying the fee of that is punishment. The money he has spent in trying to treat and revive the servant is his punishment. So, there were no prisons at that time. Everyone is to understand the biblical commandments and to be accountable to them. So if an employee misbehaves and breaks the law and trespasses against you, you can discipline them, but it is clear that you can't kill them unless the trespass requires so. Maybe that servant killed another servant. He will die. I don't know if you understand. So the employer can still be called before the judges at the city gates for questioning. So if the person actually dies after 2 or 3 days, the judges will still call the owner to the city gate for questioning. And there are checks and balances. The text does not condone the beating of slaves. It specifies the punishment appropriate for beating a slave severely. And that punishment is the money you use to try to save the slave. Now, there are 2 scenarios given in Exodus chapter 21, verse 20 to 21. So, the first thing is that the slave owner intentionally beat the person to death, which was murder and punishable by death. Number 2, the owner is overzealous and unintentionally causes the slave's death, and the punishment for that is financial loss, for the fee is his money. The fee is his money. Not that the slave is his money. The fee is his money. So disciplined servant is something that might seem unfair to us today, but it must be remembered that both the employer and the servant are subjected to biblical rules, and both the employer and the servant are both subject to punishment should those rules be violated. You must understand that. So this biblical system is designed for both the employer and the servants to be treated fairly. And if the servant ever feel that it's unfair, they always have the option to leave. The option to leave is also always in the equation. You cannot treat somebody bad, and whether it's an employer or an employee, you can't treat the person bad. The fact that most servants did not leave their employer, and in some cases decided to stay with the employer for life, even after the contract concluded, highlights the benefits that existed for both the employer and the servant. In the transatlantic slave trade, when they abolished slavery, did you see the slave wanted to wait? No. In the Bible times, you will tell, I love my master so much. I've seen some people that have worked for people for 30 years. They refuse to go. True of us. They refuse to go. Why? They love the man so much. And the man has treated them. I've seen somebody who built a house for his staff. As at that time, the staff has stayed with him for 30 years. That was the second house he was building for the staff. He bought the land to build the house for 40 million. The land, 40 million. Not in town, in GRA. And built exactly the same house he built for his children. So you must understand that. And that's what is called biblical slavery. So what we have covered so far, number one, slaves under God's law, the Torah, were different from the harshly treated slave from other society. They were more like servants or bond servants. Number two, slaves from other foreign society could be rescued and enter into just and favorable Hebraic or Hebrew system. Number three, the Bible does not give an endorsement of slave traders, but the opposite. There is nothing like slave trading in the Bible. God did not endorse it. Other nations may do it, just like you find out in the Asian Near East, like Egypt and all the rest, they were trading in slaves. Exodus 21:16 says, whoever steals a man and sells him, and anyone found in possession of him shall be put to death. So the stealer and the stealee, the stealer and the keepee, both of them are subject to death. 1 Timothy 1:10 says, the sexually immoral men who practice homosexuality, enslave us. These are the ones that will not inherit the kingdom of God. Number four, a Hebrew slave or bond servant was acquired when a person voluntarily entered into it when he needed to pay off his debt. Number five, Israelites could sell themselves as slaves, bond servants to have their debts covered, earn an income, have shelter and be set free for after 6 years, and be given abundant provision at the close of the contract. That's the Igbo apprentice system. Number six, foreigners could sell themselves as slaves and bond servants as well. In other words, some foreigners can come to meet the Israelites and say, we'll buy us as slaves, we'll love your own sales system. And there they will be treated the same way as an Israelite. More biblical ways a foreigner can become a slave. Israel has many enemies. So if an enemy resides outside of Israel was enough of a threat to merit war, Israel was commanded to offer peace treaty first. Israel could not simply go and attack the nation without offering peace. If the nation has accepted the peace treaty, what will happen as a condition to peace? The enemy was to surrender and work for the Hebrews. Deuteronomy chapter 20 verse 10 to 11. When you draw near a city to fight against it, offer terms of peace for it, and if it responds to you peaceably, and it offers to you, then all the people we have found in it shall be forced labor for you and shall serve you. When they say forced labor, understand that it's biblical slavery. Am I making sense? That's the only way that guarantees us that you will not come and fight us. You saw the Sidonites that came to meet in the book of Joshua, that they were far off. You must understand that around those nations, they were enemies of Israel. And they needed to annihilate them. And Israel was said, when you get there, please don't go there and force them. Offer them a peace treaty. You are going to work for us. And understand this, because as I'm saying this, some of you are looking and say, is this thing fair? But let's go ahead. To us in modern times, it may seem unfair, but it's a peaceful resolution. Also, being a servant in Hebrew system community is not harsh or a ruthless environment. Servants were still to be treated with respect and be given food, shelter, clothing, and more should be considered a favorable alternative to war. Instead of us going and destroying you, we are offering it. You can also destroy us and we become your servants. I hope you know that Israelites were made servants too. Amen? Why? Such a condition is the only way to know for sure that the declaration of peace is certain and not deceptive. If a nation is interested in avoiding this situation, it is best not to be an enemy of Israel. See, We in modern times will not like this arrangement of protocol, but it's a war between enemies. War between enemies does not require fairness. I remember one man, one young, is from the north then, he wrote in his corner in our secondary school, all is fair in war and love. All is fair. You were dating her, you bought her a car. It's fair. If he left you, it's okay. Because in love, Israel offers the courtesy of peace before attacking, but they are conditioned to ensure short peace is maintained and legitimate. So this peace treaty also is like offering the condition of surrender. If Israel did not employ such condition, then after Israel marched an army hundreds of miles to attack, a nation will always accept peace, but really a false sense of peace until Israel left. In other words, before they get to the place, they will first of all offer you peace. If you accept it, they will come. Not that when they are coming towards your city, you now accept, hey, we have accepted, though. No. They will put you, they will conquer it. They will destroy everything. Why? Because there is no fairness in war. Maybe next week we'll talk about genocide. Because some of you are saying God commanded people to go and destroy people. Is that not true? Is it fair? But I want to ask you a question. If you are the one that made this cup, and this cup does not meet your needs, what do you do? Huh? 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 Let's look at the summary of the biblical slavery we have been talking about. This plenty talk. Let's summarize. Because one of the problems I have with us is that many of you, when you are doing English language, you don't do summary at all because you are not, that's not your strength. You do comprehension. Summarize. Now let's look at the summary of what we are saying. Number one, it's a welfare system that actually benefited society instead of being parasitic on the society. So biblical system is a welfare system. Today we have people for 3 generations, grandfather, father, and child, all of them on welfare in some nations. On welfare. They do nothing, they stay at home, they play video game. Every month they send them check. But in the Bible, this is a welfare system where you go and give yourself. Number 2, it helps others get back on their feet and provides safety and security for their families in lean time. Number 3, what is the biblical system? This is what we have covered. Number 3, it offered a means to extract slaves from the brutal condition of other nations and enter them into the more appealing and fair condition offered by the Hebrews. And number 4, for Israel's enemy, it offered a means to peace instead of war. God bless you.